So this is the regular select board meeting for February 10th, and we'll call the meeting to order at now 5:31. Thank you all for being here. And any adjustments to the agenda, Karen?
I have one.
Okay.
I would like to add planning commission appointments. And if we can put it under select board items.
Do you care where? Does it matter?
How about if we put it just below highway certificate of highway mileage?
Sure. So, planning commission appointments.
And I'll remind you when we get there.
Okay. All right. So we have 3 different sets of minutes, January 25th, January 27th, and February 2nd. Somebody would like to make a motion to approve those?
Motion to approve the minutes from the 25th, 27th of January, and the 2nd of February, 2021.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 3 sets of minutes. If there's no further discussion or any questions, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. Wow, Mike, that's nice backdrop, fella. You can't be outside. It's not that light out anymore, I don't think, but. All right. Warrants to treasurer.
I didn't see those.
They're in your,
Right there. I got.
They're in the packet? Okay.
they're in your packet,
Oh.
I didn't see them in the email packet. Were they in the email packet?
not with my email.
She tends
no.
to send them separately, yeah.
So
No, I sent them to the meeting so you can actually look at them like we used to do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's in your hard copy, Bara,
Okay.
right in there.
Okay. I will
Should-
get my glasses.
It'll
So-
be right up front.
Okay.
And what is all this stuff? I don't know.
What do you have over there,
I
Josh?
got a huge packet of stuff.
You're going to be signing those tonight. So that's all payroll. It all goes with the warrant.
Okay.
Been so long since we've seen them, they forgot what they look like.
I know.
No, I know, but we don't usually get
I know.
10 pages.
We only get
Yeah.
2 sheets usually.
Josh, that entire package that you have in your hand will be signed.
Is the official one.
It is.
Okay, so
yes.
that not all of us have that.
I
Okay,
just have,
good.
yeah, I just have
Yeah. Okay,
Yep.
2. Okay.
sounds good.
But
So,
So a motion
a motion.
to approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer as presented upon review.
Second the motion.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve and execute the warrants. So let's go through them and then we'll vote.
Sure. So payroll warrant dated February 12th, 2021 in the amount of $19,162.80.
So some of the larger amounts for people that aren't normal, is that overtime?
There was overtime for the highway department.
Yeah.
And there are a couple on-call first responders
Okay.
who finished some certifications.
Oh, okay. I'm good with these.
We've still got some holdouts on this electronic transmission, eh?
Yes.
Those highway department folks really
I know.
stuck in their ways.
It's okay. When we have to mail their checks, they'll change they might change their mind.
All right, so AP.
Accounts payable dated February 6th through February 12th, 2021 in the amount of $291,010.72. So in this warrant is the payment for the highway dump truck that is now in service. So Advantage Truck Group, that is for the main truck. And then Howard Fairfield LLC, that's the body for $65,750. Community Bank is the final payment on the sidewalk loan.
Nice.
So that is done. Let's see, what else?
I don't have this version that you're talking about, I don't think, but that's okay. I'll take your word for it.
What is
Josh, you wanna
Cargill
look at this?
Incorporated?
Wanna take this?
Cargill is chemicals for the treatment plant, isn't it? Or
No,
is-
Cargill is salt.
Oh, that's right.
So we had
Okay.
2 deliveries of salt. People's United Bank is the 3rd payment for the Ram pickup truck. And then Southwestern New Hampshire District is the Keene Mutual Aid.
I was gonna say.
Oh,
Didn't know
okay.
what that-
Yep,
For dispatch services.
correct.
How many payments a year?
Just a single.
That's the
Just that
one,
one.
yes.
Right.
It's big, but.
Yep.
And I have the invoices here if anyone wants to review them.
Here you go, Derek.
I'm good with
Pass
that.
back to David. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? So it's been moved and seconded to approve the warnings as presented, payroll and accounts payable, and we've now reviewed them. If there's no further questions, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Good. Okay, approved, and I'll pass these guys right past you. Those can be signed. Good,
And
thank
then you can
you.
hand them to me.
Oh,
Barry, you need to,
what?
those are the warrants.
You need to, you
Oh,
sign.
these are the things I usually come in to sign.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep. And Barry, you have minutes in front of you
Yes,
as well.
I got those. Everybody signed already, or
Just you as the clerk sign the minutes.
oh, okay.
Yeah, we don't have
Yeah.
to sign
Okay.
this.
So if I can get you to sign off on things tonight,
Yep,
we're good to go.
got it.
All right, so next on our agenda is public comment on items not on the agenda. So if there's anybody who has
Thank you, David.
anything that's not on the agenda that they would like to bring up, this would be a good time. And I don't have the chat in front of me, so Alyssa, anybody wanting to bring anything up or not?
This is making funny noises, Austin.
Yeah.
If somebody is not muted
Oh.
on their end.
Alyssa, is maybe somebody not muted on your end?
Lynn, could you, yeah, there you go.
I
Lynn just
just-
muted herself. Okay. All right, I don't hear any interest in public comment
Yeah,
on,
Karen, unmute yourself,
Why?
It was me.
because I muted you.
Okay,
Oh, that's okay, you can be muted, never mind.
right.
all right. So we'll move on to select board items. So RHR Smith and Company, CPA's final audit for acceptance, and we have reviewed this. Any changes since we reviewed it? There shouldn't be.
No. So
Right. Okay.
I just gave you a final copy.
Here's the final copy.
David
Yeah.
has one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Barry, if you would like one, I have an
You wanna
extra.
look at this?
No, I got that last week.
Right.
I'm
Okay.
good.
So here's the final.
No, I got
All
it
right.
last. I'm good.
So the only thing I wanted to point out was the management letter from November 13th.
What page are you on?
That's not in the book,
Oh, it isn't.
No,
Is it in our
but
packet?
it's in your
Yeah.
It's in our
packet.
packet.
So basically, this outlines our deficiencies. And on page 2, fire department billing,
Yeah, I saw that.
and then bank reconciliations, which our office, my office will work with the fire chief and Alyssa, because she is the assistant treasurer. And then I'll work with them on both of these.
Great.
So
And have you written a response to the auditor?
I didn't have to write
Because
a,
they weren't material? Is that, or he, okay.
a new auditor, and
Doesn't require
unlike the last one, right? So I'm comfortable with it. I did go through mine.
Oh my.
And I have questions for the auditor, but just some little clarification. And I'm still waiting for answers from other questions that I had sent him. So I want to follow up with him.
Yeah, he didn't get back to you? since
No.
we talked? Okay.
No,
I have questions too for him.
Yes.
but, yeah.
so we can arrange a time.
Great.
We can do it together,
That'd be
or Alyssa and I want to speak with them too a little bit further.
Okay.
So
Anything that should hold us up from voting on approving this?
I recommend that you go ahead
Okay.
and approve and accept it.
David, you have some questions, but you're comfortable
They're-
approving it as it is? and-
They're not for us or for her, they're for the auditor and mostly probably just for education for
Yeah.
Right.
myself.
Right.
And so, no, I don't.
Okay, sounds good. So I would entertain a motion to accept the final audit as presented from R.H.R. Smith and Company.
So move.
Seconded.
Yes, Mr. Fairman. Mr. Fairman, go ahead.
I think we lost him.
Did he get muted?
I don't
Well,
see.
Okay, now I'm on,
There
right?
you, yeah,
Yes.
there you
We
are.
got you.
Okay, good. Just a quick question. I understand that a number of you have some questions for the auditor. Should I assume that these questions will be asked and answered during a public meeting?
Some will, because Ann Carey had some questions that I want to follow through with the auditor. And
Mr. Chairman, I do have to wonder why some questions from the to and from the to the auditor will be answered in a public meeting and the others not, because it doesn't matter what the question is. It's our money.
Well, yes, but for example, David just said that it was for his own education. If David has questions you can ask him if he would like to review those once he has asked
Sure.
them.
I got
But
nothing to hide. Absolutely.
yeah, it's
Right.
not. It's
This is just for me doing my job better. I just want to learn something from the auditor.
so I don't think we're going to be asking any further questions. I don't have any further questions on it, but I don't think we're going to have any further questions that are so much related to the material as it is presented, as it is probably more sort of process oriented.
Exactly.
Right.
But if people feel it's important, then we can invite David to bring that up at our next meeting.
I'd be glad to expose my lack of knowledge.
Mr. Chairman, in that regard, I would side with the select person Babbitt. We all know less than we think we do.
So we might all learn from it. Sounds good. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded to accept the audit in its final state. If there's no further questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So
Good.
Josh, in your packet, there's
Yeah,
the
I saw
form
that.
if
Yeah.
you'd like to sign
So
it.
So you want us all to sign the same one, right? You just had to.
Man,
Correct.
Okay.
this is so official.
You're not
That's
used to this, I
Do
know.
you
I'm
have one,
sorry.
Josh?
Let's
Here.
give
It's been so long.
Here you go.
do.
I know.
It's right here. I saw it. I know I have it, but
Yeah.
no, usually we all go into the office and
I
sign
know.
separately, and
Or electronic.
this is much more open meeting law.
This is definitely for Howard.
Yeah.
So there will be copies of the full audit if anyone would like them. And we're going to put it up on the website first thing tomorrow.
It's intriguing reading, let me tell you.
Howard, you'll want to read that, right? Sorry, Mr. Fairman, you'll want to read that. It's going to be on the website.
He's probably already read
Oh,
most
maybe
of
you
it.
have.
I think it's already on the website.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So next would be our highway certificate of highway mileage review and approval. This is an annual undertaking that we do just to verify. In this case, I think that there have probably
Skip.
not been any changes from last year. Is that
No, there's no changes, Josh.
right? So
We'll go back to that one.
So if somebody would like to move to approve the certificate of highway mileage for the year ending February 10th, 2021.
So moved.
Go ahead.
Seconded.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve the certificate of highway mileage. Is there any further discussion? Just
Yes.
so people,
I
okay?
don't, so
So
this,
what,
when I first looked at this, I thought this was miles driven, but this is not miles driven.
No.
This
No.
is number of miles of actual pavement or road in the town. Is that right?
correct.
All,
the only question.
all town highways,
Okay.
yeah.
And
Got
the reason we do this is because we get state funding
Based on the map.
based on the amount. And so we have
Right.
to do this on an annual basis. And for example, a few years ago, we gave up a teeny little piece of road off of Pierce's Lane that then comes off of here.
Correct.
And so we get,
Yep. Or if we add,
$8.20 less a year.
right, if we add a town road that's maintained.
Yeah.
So basically it's for maintenance. It's state aid to highways. We get it every year and it increases, like less than 3% a year,
Yeah.
but
So I just have another, this is a curiosity question. I walk my dogs up on East Town Farm Road
yeah,
at the back. That used to be a town maintained road and it no longer is. Is that now, was that actually subtracted from this at whatever point it became a private road? Or no? Because private doesn't?
It's a class 4
right.
or a class,
It might be a,
it's
No,
a
I
I can't
trail,
remember when
Yeah.
that was maintained. You're
long
talking-
time ago.
Right.
Yeah, it was before.
But there's a sign that says this
Yeah.
is no longer maintained.
Exactly. So it's been a while. It just
Right.
the sign was in.
Yeah, I
Oh,
don't
okay.
remember. Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
it's a long
never in my time. Certainly.
Right.
So
older
I'm-
than me.
I'm just curious.
it's a class
that
4.
wouldn't have changed this, or it would have changed this?
If we readopted it, because
Right.
there was a question about that came up. There's a group, because
18
there's a number of
roads.
houses out there, and they approached us about readopting it as a maintained. Basically, in a situation like that, if there's enough people who are interested, they can opt to upgrade the road from a trail or a class 4 road
Right,
to a class 3 road, and then ask the town to adopt it for maintenance.
right.
And if we did that, then that
this
would change.
would go up.
this.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
Okay, so it was actually, was at some point a part of the town and then it was removed and that happened long before anybody here?
it may not have ever even been a class 3
Right.
road.
Oh.
It may have always been a trail.
I don't know the history of that road
I'm
very
not
well.
sure
That's
either.
okay.
Yeah.
That was just curiosity. Thank
But
you.
there are ways, for example, Warden Road is an example of a road that a number of
Right.
years ago, a whole bunch of everybody that lived out there, Anne would know more about this than any of us probably, and more than she necessarily cares to, but they decided, they actually bonded to get that road brought up to spec so that it could be adopted by the town. The town committed to maintaining it until the bond was complete, which I think it is now.
Yes.
And it was paid off, and so now it's a full town road.
Right.
So, and that, you have to have a certain number of residences, and it has to be brought up to
State
current
standards.
state standard,
Yep.
et cetera, and then
Yep.
it can be adopted.
All
So,
right, thank you.
There's a discussion about that with Turner Trail.
Turner
this
Trail,
last year.
Taylor
well, that's the
Road.
one, that's most recent,
Right.
but yeah,
Taylor Road and Earl's Way too was,
yeah.
somebody talked to me
They-
about that.
They come up fairly often. I mean, it was
Right.
Meeting House and Priest Road,
Appreciate it.
Do you-
Pierce Road, Pierce
Oh,
Pierce
Lane.
Road,
right.
yes.
Um, It comes up from
Mr.
time to time.
Chairman.
So it's, yes, Mr. Fairman.
I'm also curious, on the town highway map, that highway mileage is measured to the thousandth of a mile,
Yes.
which is 5 feet 3 inches. And I'm wondering, who does these measurements? Do we have someone on the town staff who can do it that precisely? And do we bring someone in? How's it done?
Wyndham Regional Commission does it, Jeff Nugent, and they map everything. And I have a map right in the office, so.
They don't come out every year and measure it.
No,
Unless they've been
no,
notified.
no.
of the
It's certified.
If there's
and
a
then if there's a
change,
change, they'll
right.
add it or subtract it. But of course, as you know, Mr. Fairman, this was probably all based on chains at one point, which I believe a chain is 63 feet. That may be why you have that specific a breakdown. I don't know, because
Right.
I don't know. It's an interesting question, but it's not up to us to measure it. So Wyndham Regional does that.
Yep.
And the other
Thank
thing,
you.
the other thing that is not included, state highway is
Yep.
included, but so that's our portion of Route 5
Correct.
is the 11.501. All right, so it's been moved and seconded to approve the certificate of highway mileage. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and I'm going to sign right here.
Oh, you guys are making me happy tonight.
Okay, so
It's early.
next after that would be
Appointments, do you want to?
planning commission appointments?
Yeah.
Okay,
So in your packet is an email from Pip Bannister regarding 3 candidates.
so I'll just read this quickly. So
Sure.
the state, this is from Pip Bannister, Karen and select board members, Robin Ekstrom, Jules Lavoie, and Vanessa Vadim have all written letters expressing their interest in serving on the planning commission and have attended meetings. Mary Heller Osgood stepped down from the planning commission last week after years of dedicated service, leaving 2 vacancies. Boy, Mary stepped down and that made 2 vacancies. Think of that. That's
Right.
pretty good. So we already had one, I'm assuming. It wasn't her taking up 2
Correct.
spots.
Correct.
I recommend that Robin and Jules be appointed to the planning commission to fill the current vacancies and that Vanessa be an alternate. Her letter of interest was the last one received. If Eileen, that would be Eileen Chute, is elected to select board, she may want to resign from her recent planning commission appointment and Vanessa can fill that vacancy. Pip Bannister, Putney, planning commission chair. So first I'd like to just say thank you to Mary.
Yes.
I mean, Mary has done this. I don't see Pip on here, but Mary has been on that committee for 20 years. I
A
would
long
guess.
time, I heard. Yes.
What's that?
Yes.
More than? Yeah, I mean,
Probably.
a long, long time.
Yep.
And so thank you very much to Mary for all her amazing work over all those years. And also to Pip, who's been there for
Yeah.
probably even longer than Mary and
Wow.
keeps doing it. And so
Yep.
thank you, Pip, also. And, but I would certainly entertain a motion that we approve the appointment of Robin and Jules to fill the current vacancies and to approve Vanessa as an alternate.
So moved.
Second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to make new appointments to the Planning Commission. Is there any discussion? All right, no discussion. So it's been moved and seconded to appoint Robin and Jules and Vanessa as an alternative. No further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you all. Thank you,
Welcome,
Robin. I see you're
Robin.
on there. Yeah.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you.
Important work, definitely.
Yes.
Okay. So next. Broadband update and discussion. Next step. So I don't know whether.
Can I just do a preview?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
in your packet, you have 2 templates for request for proposal
Mm-hmm.
to build out an infrastructure to serve the unserved and underserved with broadband fiber. I have Michael Maricki on in the meeting as well. He's going to update us on Deerfield Valley Communication Union District. And Michael and Core Trowbridge and I have been kind of working together. I spoke to Jeff at Consolidated Communications a few weeks back, and he had sent me one of the templates for an RFP. There's a lot of work going into putting a number together for a project like this. And his recommendation is that we take a template, we put an RFP together if the board elects to do that. And then we try to solicit other service providers.
Bidders, yeah.
And see what we come up with. And once we have that information, then this board can, make a decision, maybe create a committee, or we continue to work together and see where it goes. I also know that there's funding now to back this up. I haven't dug into that yet, and perhaps Michael might have some information on that. So this is kind of just an update to see where.
Funding to back up sending an RFP or?
No, to build the
To do build out?
infrastructure.
Okay.
But there's many balls with this project and many steps.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
So, I just want people on in the meeting to know this, because I didn't know this before I came on the board, and I think a lot of people don't know this. When you email all three of us on the board, because of open meeting law, we cannot reply and CC everybody. We can only reply individually, and that often doesn't make sense because we need to make a decision as a board. So we appreciate your contact through email, but please don't get upset if you don't hear back from us because it's a little complicated. We have an email from Steve Connor from January 22nd about broadband support, and I'm wondering if anybody has responded to him or if somebody could let him know that we're going forward, taking a step forward with this. I'd like to at least.
This was on what,
January-
Pond Road?
He is saying.
Or,
he came from
Sound
Austin.
I think we addressed it in a previous meeting.
We did.
He emailed after that meeting.
We were
Okay.
talking,
And so,
about how trying to get,
I just wanted somebody to respond to him so that he may not know how this all works, and he sent an email to all three of us, and he may not have heard anything back.
So he sent it to you three
Yes,
and not.
apparently,
no,
yeah.
we talked about this in the meeting.
Yes.
I know we did.
Yeah.
But you talked about this topic in a meeting?
No, about this letter, I believe.
Well, no, this is like the third letter we've
Okay.
received from somebody. So this is I think you're talking about the Bert Tepfer one, which we did talk about in a meeting.
Right.
So clearly there are people who are really interested in increasing the availability
Right.
of reliable service. So,
Right. And people are looking at Consolidated or Comcast right now. There's other companies out there. So with an RFP, we will probably get numbers and what they can provide and how to do it. And
So can I forward this just to get
Can
this
you?
piece? Can I
'Cause-
forward this
yes.
to you and let you respond?
Yeah.
'Cause
Sure.
We didn't, I guess none of us did, okay?
Sure.
So I'll do that.
And,
Yeah.
and that's for anybody who doesn't know this, it's important to know that the best way to contact the select board is actually to
Through me.
email the
Yeah.
town manager.
yeah,
And then the town manager communicates it to us. Because as Barra said, we can't participate in communication via email that
With each
includes
other.
all three of
Right.
us.
So I'm looking at my email to send this to you, and Eva Munden said she can't get into the meeting. Is there somebody who has to let her in? There's a password? Oh,
Oh,
there wasn't.
yeah.
Okay, that's new, I think. If you want to give it to me, I can email her back. I don't know.
Yeah, the password is,
hey Alyssa, can you help?
passcode is
Eva?
534551.
534551.
I can also call her.
All right, I'm sending this to her. Anybody else? Alyssa, if you want to follow up, it's Eva Munden. I just sent her the passcode, but I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if she'll be able to. I don't know if she'll be checking her email.
I wonder if she knows it's Zoom tonight.
Yeah, I think it. I mean, I wouldn't have known there was a password. So.
I didn't need one to get in. I don't know if anybody else did.
Oh, okay.
It depends
Yeah,
if you're a new device, then sometimes
Oh.
it does
Right.
that to you.
Yeah, and she has like an iPad.
Oh.
If she goes to the agenda, there's a link to
Right.
that will get in on Zoom from the agenda.
Okay.
Yep.
Alyssa, are you following up with that? Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna not worry.
Right.
All right.
So,
Michael's
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Mr. Fairman.
I would like to offer a clarification. It was mentioned that if a member of the public sends an email to all three members of the select board, this could be problematic. I'm looking at the open meeting law here. Actually, there's no problem because the problem would arise if you communicated with each other about the email. But in terms of you
Thank
each
you.
communicating, if you wish, with the person who sent the email, that doesn't come under
Can I
the
just clarify
Vermont
what I
open
said?
meeting law.
Well, I think the problem is if
What
you,
I said was, we can't reply to that person and CC each other, because that would be communicating with each other. So I can reply as an individual, but often we need to make a decision as a group. So if you email us, all three of us, you may not hear back because it's kind of like because I'm the kind of person who I like to reply to emails right away. I have been replying to people and saying, sorry, we can't make a decision, but that gets tiring. So I just wanted people to realize that if they email all three of us and they don't hear back, it doesn't mean we're not interested. It's best to email Karen because she can reply without any problems.
And I have to say, Mr. Chairman, that I must respectfully disagree with what the person who just spoke said, because the open meeting law applies to when a quorum of a public body is present and discussing business. And when you are replying, whether it is to an email that you got personally or one that was sent to all three of you, this in no way is a gathering of a quorum or a discussion of public business. Now, you're quite right that if a decision is to be made, yes, indeed, the decision has to be made in an open meeting. But as far as communicating with individuals, there is the Vermont open meeting law puts no restriction whatsoever on your communicating with your constituents.
right, but what Barra is pointing out is that we can't do that and CC it, because then it is direct communication from one of us to the others of us via email. And so that's the difference. And my understanding is that we can't engage in electronic communication amongst the three of us. So if you CC it, if you were just to reply to the individual, you would be correct. And that's what Barra has done. But then David and I don't see it, and then it just complicates it because then it's not a discussion, it's a reply from an individual. So, but we should verify that and we'll make sure. But thank you for pointing that out. You got Eva? She on?
So we're on the broadband.
So yes, broadband.
I'm at the meeting, but why in the hell didn't somebody tell me?
Hi, Eva, you're on. We can hear you. Yeah. Hi.
Oh my God.
Austin.
I've been trying to get on for an hour now.
You're gonna have to edit that piece out.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Oh, okay, I'm
So-
gonna mute.
Okay.
Thank
Point your camera at your face. There you go. Hi, Eva.
Hi, Eva.
All right. So broadband. So do you want Mike or Core to
Yeah,
jump
let's
in
do
at this
that.
point?
They have
Yes.
additional information.
Mike or Core, do you want to take over?
Sure, I can add something to this, and Core can as well. I've been the alternate to this DV5 or CBD, and Core's been the main member from Putney, representing Putney. But what I did want to share, and first of all, thank you for offering this time, and thanks for your service too. I think COVID has amplified everything, and the needs of the town have certainly been amplified too. So thanks for your service there. One of the things that has become more clear as the legislative session opened up is that we're still going to be waiting for money from the feds to do this. 2 years ago, we identified build out in Vermont for broadband to the last mile, every address, as a $300 million problem. So when the governor proposed putting $20 million into his budget this year, it was clear that it's going to be a while for us to get there unless and until that money from the feds comes. Now, we have big hopes that there will be significant funds from the federal government, but we may have to put up more than that. So it's going to be a challenge for some of us to convince the governor that this is a worthwhile investment. So that's why I think the CUD and the legislative delegation met with them at the start of the session, is looking to the state for a lot of the money that they're going to be needing to build out. So not sure how that's going to work out in terms of being the most expeditious option. So that's why I think it's a good idea to start to get some hard numbers from Consolidated or whoever else. One of the things we did learn too, that the reason Consolidated has been expanding is that there was either an auction or lottery for the opportunity to start expanding, and Consolidated won a number of those spots that are available. So that's one of the reasons they've been looking to expand. What I can say lastly about the state is that there's definitely a commitment to do this. We understand this is a huge barrier to bringing people in, and as I've heard from the people, Steve, that you mentioned before, and lots of other people in Putney, people that have moved here, people have been here, that if people are sent home from work and kids are sent home from school, the need for broadband is even greater. So the problem's not going to go away. This is an essential piece for life in the 21st century. So I think anything we can do to expedite this will be good for the town. And I mentioned that in light of another piece of we're going to be starting work on reapportionment. And as we look at the initial census figures, the last one was from 2019, Putney has lost population in the last 10 years, about 250 people. So that's not a trend. We want to keep going in that direction. So if this can be one of those things that help maintain or expand the population of Putney, it's a good thing. So I'm going to pass it over to Cor now, and she can give you a better update on the CUD's progress.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Cor.
Hi, Cor.
Just want to put my BCTV hat on and say this meeting looks and sounds fantastic tonight.
Yay.
Thank you, Austin Rice over there.
Austin Rice.
Other hat on now. I'm just Cor from Putney. And I am your representative on the DV Fiber or Deerfield Valley Communication Union District board. And that is a board where there's 20 towns who have joined together to put together a publicly owned broadband fiber to the premises network, and that will serve every single premise in the area, in the region. Regardless of how hard it is to get to or how expensive or anything. And that's the commitment of the project. I just want to, so the good parts about the regional approach is that it spreads the cost and the risk and the liability on a regional basis. And, one of the things we have to look at if we're going to do an RFP for our town only is who's going to ultimately own, manage, and be responsible for this network. Is it the town of Putney? Does the town want to do that? For these projects, will they give fiber to the premises to every single location? There are about 300 premises in town that are not served, or households. And so will it go to all of those, or is it just going to go to the ones that already have some service? We need to collect information on that. And I just think, it's putting an RFP out there is good to just see what you get, but we also want it to say what we want to get out of it. So that's why I think it's, we should be careful with what RFP we put out there.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I'm wondering, Karen and Mike and Cor, if you feel like the three of you working together is a good idea to keep going with the RFP, or should we create an actual Putney committee to look at the larger broadband issue that has maybe more people, or like a designated function to look at it from the place of Putney.
Was Karen saying something?
No.
No.
I'd be happy to pull together an information meeting for people who are interested to explain about the CUD project, and Mike can explain what he knows about funding. And then the other thing is the RFP thing, where I think Karen feels some pressure to act and get something out there and get some numbers, because people are pretty desperate when we're also relying on internet.
Well, can I interject? I'm bringing this to the select board, and it's not a decision I'll make on my own to just throw an RFP out there. It's totally up to the board. And
I've been hearing from enough people and been hearing enough evidence that this is an issue that really needs some.
I agree.
I think that it
agree
might
with
be
you.
good for us to have a committee formed that's, and I don't want to take it away from Cora and Karen and Mike if you feel like you want to do it. But if you feel like that would be supportive and helpful, then I think it would be good to have a committee, and maybe Steve, who was he expressed interest and he said he's available. So I don't know if the board feels like that's a good idea, but I think it would be helpful.
Can I ask a question, Josh?
Yes.
Of you?
Yeah.
So back in maybe 2011,
Yeah.
when Consolidated put fiber up Westminster Road and West Hill, do you recall how that transpired? Did you have a committee, or did?
Not that I recall. No, I think that was primarily motivated by a couple larger
Businesses?
organizations that were willing to help make that happen. Mike, do you remember exactly? I mean, I think, Putney School certainly needed and wanted service. I believe Putney Student Travel might have been involved, and I'm not sure about that, but also the grammar school.
From what I know, it was Southern Vermont Cable that pulled the line, the fiber optic line up to the West Hill area. And then maybe 5 years ago, there was a band of about 70 people who got together, and we were able to get them some funding through the state to expand even beyond the Putney School. And that was Billy Strauss and Mike Willner, a bunch of people that organized that.
Yeah.
That's now Comcast. So, but I think they're all around the town. You heard from Bert Tepler, there's people in East Putney. I've certainly been hearing from them. And while a committee might make sense as an ongoing thing to help keep on top of this, I wouldn't wait to put an RFP out. I think the time is now, and if you can start that process now to get some, maybe something would be ready. So when the construction season starts, I know across the river in Chesterfield, they started that process at the beginning of last year, and started pulling cable in May, and I think they finished the town in December. The CUD in the long run might be a good idea, but they're talking 3 to 5 years.
Right.
So,
So bonding's going to be bonding or grant funding to pay for the project. We know we'd like it in town and as quickly as possible. So without funding, how do we?
So
that needs to be in place, and we need to have some sort of
I think
amount.
we need an RFP to go out before we consider that.
Correct.
I also don't know. Mike, one thing I would just ask you to keep an eye on as things go forward. I hate to be a town that moves proactively on this and as a result misses out on federal funding that ultimately comes to the state. So in whatever legislative actions are taken on that, I just would be hopeful that would also be retroactive for those towns who spend money in advance. But I think that to get an RFP, to get a grasp on it, and I agree with you, and we talked about this at one of our previous meetings, that concern of, I agree that being spread out further over a district reduces risks in some ways, but it definitely, from what we could tell, and we asked specifically about this at one of our meetings, that last mile is going to be longer to come through the CUD than it will be otherwise. So, but also we asked very specifically when Consolidated came and presented to us, we were at the same time having conversations with CUD, and we said, is this something you all are willing to work with? So I think that having a committee, but certainly including at least one, if not both of you in those conversations, because if we're going to approach Consolidated and or others and put an RFP out, I think we should do it sort of independently, but also with the idea that we might be part of a CUD and see what that looks like, and whether they can.
I would say the best case scenario, Josh, is that they can work together, and it may be that Consolidated becomes one of the vendors for the CUD.
Which is exactly what they suggested, and also, and I don't know how this. We talked with. Is it Steve from Marlboro? Jeffrey, is that right?
Stephen John.
Stephen John,
Yeah.
that's right. We talked with him also about who the vendors would be, who would serve the CUD ultimately, and he said that becomes an auction-like bidding process, is my recollection. So sort of how that works, but I think that trying to look at it all at the same time, and then some committee essentially saying, yes, this looks like the best way to do it, would make the most sense.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
If I may add just a bit, first I should like to express my support for what Representative Moricky has said, because Chesterfield is an excellent example of how they can get universal broadband within one construction season.
Fast, yeah.
And I would submit that our goal in Putney is universal broadband. Now, communications union districts, because they involve a number of towns, I've been looking into this. Of course, they get into the question of who gets service when. So what they do is they have to give some to each town, but no town gets to the finish line until some years from now. Now, Consolidated Communications quite possibly can say to us, as Representative Moricky has indicated, if we can start at the beginning of this construction season, we can have it done by the end of the construction season. Now, if we accept that our goal is universal broadband service in Putney, this may very well be the way to go, and we may not need a committee to tell us so. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we keep everything moving.
Right.
I think
And
we work
agree.
on getting an
I agree
RFP
with
out.
that.
I think we involve a couple other people to take some of the load off of Core and Mike as far as keeping the in-town part of it, and off of Karen, because people are willing and able. But I agree, getting an RFP out. The other problem, as far as this construction season is concerned, I don't know how flexible the funding models are for an organization like Consolidated, but there's no way we're getting bond money before construction season. I mean, the next round of bond money, the application would probably be due in August, I'm guessing.
Right.
That would be for fall dispersal. So, but somebody like Consolidated may well be able to start something like this based on the application having been filed, or the intent,
Right.
on the part of the select board or something. I don't know.
Now-
So.
And I understand too that user fees will pay, for the financing of that bond.
Right.
But if it's stimulus money or grant money, then
They get paid in a chunk.
right.
Right.
And I have one question for Cora though.
Yeah.
So Cora, I have two templates. You have the same two, right? Your comment about making sure when we put a request for proposal out there, that we ask for the right, items. What do you mean by that? Can you give me an example?
Well, for example, I talked to Carol Monroe, who's works for ValleyNet and has been a consultant on these things. And she was just very knowledgeable about, like, we don't need to ask them to build fiber to the premises to places that are already served.
Correct.
That, we need to make choices about what our priorities are and what exactly we want. Like the term broadband is a little wishy-washy because broadband could mean 25 down and 3 up, which is not adequate, really. We want fiber to the premises. So we want to use the right terminologies.
Okay.
So she had some advice on that. And so I just was thinking maybe a good thing to do would be to look over the RFPs that we have and compare them and just see what does Putney really want, and how can we get what we need for the least amount of money that we think we would have to spend.
Right.
If I could just add to that too, Cor, I'm sorry, were you done, Cor?
No problem.
Yeah. Specifically, and this is what was recommended to me by Tim Briglin, who's the rep from Thetford, where EC Fiber is, and he said that the standard right now is 100 up and down, symmetrical service.
That's what we want.
And that's what we want, and specifically, I think that's what you want to put in your RFP.
And that's kind of what I was trying to say is that, I think the concept of putting an RFP out there is great. It's good timing. And there's clearly a lot of impetus for that, but I think we want to be careful with what we are asking for what we want.
Okay.
So I have a question. If I could ask Cor or Mike. Cor, you'd mentioned Putney needs to know whether or not we want to own this.
Right.
I think that's what you said.
I think that's the Chesterfield model, is that they end up owning it in 20 years.
So in the long run, that will be much less expensive for the users if we own that. Is that the point?
It could be. There's a positive to that in that we have the control, but when there's the negative is that we have the responsibility and the liability.
And the management of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Which could work out with the CUD, like we were talking about this originally, that it's possible that if Putney can get this done earlier, and then the CUD over time could come in and then they would be able to manage it. Mm-hmm. That's a possibility. I'm on this board and I do want to have Putney get some of the benefits of being a part of this regional project.
Right.
So I totally understand that 3 to 5 years feels like way too long to wait. Mm-hmm. If it's possible with this new administration in Washington that there's going to be a lot more money for rural broadband, it's possible that this could be the whole regional network could be built much faster, or that towns like us would have access to that kind of funding. I honestly just don't know that.
Right.
Yeah, I certainly think as far as coming up with an RFP, I'm guessing there's at least 2 or 3 people on the CUD board who are very well equipped to review something like that. I mean, I think that can, I agree with you that taking advantage or, potentially moving forward and then considering the CUD as part of that, we could sort of work hand in. I mean, if we can do something proactive and get ahead, but that benefits the CUD, that would be good too. So I think that we just need to keep that avenue of communication open and keep working with those who are working on it more regionally. Because if we are able to do that and other towns see that, they might say, hey, well, if we build this infrastructure and then join the CUD also, then we're in good shape. So, might be a bigger picture.
So I have another question for Cor or Mike. So how soon would you want to see an RFP pulled together and put out there?
I'm not aware of the cycles of funding and construction as much as you all are. When Jeff from Consolidated spoke with you, did he have a recommendation on the timing? One thing I have heard from being on the CUD board is that companies like Consolidated are very busy these days.
Yeah, they are out straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my own opinion, and this is just opinion, would be that if we're even remotely interested in this construction season, that RFP needs to go out as soon as possible.
Right. So, Mike,
I would agree with that. And what we have heard though too is when this build out starts, they're not just going to rely on their people. There's lots of subcontractors they can bring into in-state to pull cable. So I don't think that's going to be the biggest thing. If the money's there, they're going to find the crews that can do it. So it's not just going to be their crews.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
Once again, I second what Representative Maricki has just said, but I would like to go back and respectfully challenge something that was said earlier, which was that broadband is 100 megabits per second download. I double checked. The Federal Communications Commission still defines broadband as 25 megabits per second download, 3 megabits per second upload. But to give you an idea of what 100 megabits per second represents, 100 megabits per second enables you to watch simultaneously in HD 20 Netflix movies. Now, this is far beyond the needs of any household anywhere. It's on the scale of what you might do in a small hotel. So in terms of 100 megabit per second broadband via fiber to the premises in Putney, there simply is no possible need for that. Thank you.
Well, I would contend, and we don't need to debate that though, that we want to be ready for what's coming down. That may be true for right now, but we don't want to put something up and find it's obsolete in 5 years. And that's why EC Fiber and all the other people that are building out now, and it's symmetrical. It's not just 100 up, it's 100 up and down. And it's the service that businesses need, and for people who want to have 4 or 5 people at home doing school or business, this is going to be what people are going to need.
Yeah, no, and I think it's hard to imagine. I mean, for example, if you think of us all sitting here as holographs, whatever the proper term would be, I have no idea what it takes to up and down that, but, we're headed, we never could have imagined 10 years ago what we'd be using right now. And I think 10 years out, not to disagree with you, Mr. Fairman, because I think you're right. Right now, that's probably a little bit excessive, but, as Mike pointed out, I mean, I have 4 members in my household and they can all be watching 4 different Netflix shows. So that's a fifth of that right there. But I just think we should be trying to get the best service we can in the time that we are.
So
Mr. Chairman, I will say, indeed, by the way, the technology that we are using right now existed 20 years ago. The technology we are using to do the Zooming. I'm a veteran computer systems and software engineer, and we were doing this kind of stuff 20 years ago. It's just that now it's being done by the general public because of the pressures of the pandemic. But it's actually nothing new. But in any event, I'm simply suggesting let's keep moving forward. Let's not wait for anything until something beyond our control stops us, because that's how we will get to where we want to go as fast as we can. And I say that as a veteran engineer who's worked on things that had never been done before. And that's how we got to where we were going. We didn't ask ourselves, can we get there? We simply said, where shall we move first? We moved there, well, we made it to there, we keep going, and eventually, guess what? We got it done.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree.
I would like to ask the board if you would like me to move ahead with the request for proposal. I can work with Michael and Core.
Yep.
And we can define the proposal if that is what the board directs me to do.
I also would suggest that we include, there have been more than one person who has stepped forward, and we have an email from more than one.
Right.
But if there are people with expertise or willingness to participate in this, we want to move it ahead quickly. So we don't want a committee to be cumbersome in that fact, but being available to Karen to be helpful if you can, and you have the data and the knowledge, that would be great.
Yes.
So well, I want to suggest that we leave it up to Karen
Yes.
to move forward and
Yep.
and let us know if you want any support from us in creating a committee or any other thing. But if you feel like it's best to start now and do the RFP, and then once that's going, you could reach out to other people and ask what their expertise are. I
Right.
trust your judgment on that.
Okay. Thank you.
No, and it may be something also that a committee is going to be, I just think including a few more people would take a little bit to spread the load a little further. Also, if, I'm guessing we would only get perhaps 3 responses to an RFP because I
Right.
can only think of 3 potential vendors.
Could be
But
4
even,
or 5.
if we got 4 or 5,
Right.
that's the kind of thing a committee could sit down and sift through.
Right.
I know I'm not equipped to look at
Right.
RFPs of this
Yeah.
kind of thing.
And
So-
that's mostly why I recommended the committee, because I didn't want it to fall on us to have to do all the technical stuff. I
Right.
thought it would be better to have
Yep.
some people who have experience.
Yep.
Yeah.
And maybe we can build that up as we go
Yeah.
through.
Yeah,
So,
no, I think that I agree with Para that,
Yeah.
if you need help, there are people
Right.
who have offered, we should recruit them.
Yeah.
If Mike and Core know people who want to be involved, we should include them, and Mike and Core should be involved, and the CUD
Yes.
should
And
be
do
involved.
we, just
So-
as a select board, do we need to establish a committee officially, or is that something that she can?
We don't need to do that right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Right.
Because Karen can ask for help from people who have offered.
Right.
And
Okay, great.
if it demands that it forms a committee later, we can do that.
Okay.
Okay, Michael and Cora, I'll be reaching out to you.
Thanks,
you, guys.
Mike.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Core.
both.
Hey,
Yeah.
and thanks, Core, also for the help down here. This is great.
It is.
Yes.
It seems to be working very well.
Yeah.
So,
You're really coming through loud and clear, and I can see who's talking, and it's really a big difference.
Yeah.
good.
Good.
Thank you.
And Alyssa isn't upset by the fact that she can't hear anybody, so that's a big positive. All right, so agenda for the public informational meeting, which will be on February 27th at 10 a.m.
Correct. Virtual Zoom. In your packet is basically directions about remote public informational hearing, notice and agenda. On the second page is a draft agenda. I laid it out from a template from VLCT. I may just number it differently and not have the bullets, but it's pretty straightforward. Is there anything that the board would like to add? I do have one adjustment. I will add Community Service Award announcement. And Josh, I'm going to have you make that announcement.
Sounds good.
I just wanted to, this is actually another question I had. We talked at the last meeting. I know you are incredibly busy, so I'm just checking in on a status update. Wanting to have Larry write something about Article 13, clarifying why he
Yep.
feels it's non-binding.
I asked him for that.
Okay.
I said, I
Thank you
need a
for that.
statement.
So I wonder if we just want to put that in here under Article 13 so that we remember it and there's a place for it.
Yes. And I will get with Larry because there's 2 outstanding items that he has not, he's busy too, but thank you for bringing that
You're
up,
welcome.
Farah. So, non-binding.
And I'm just confirming because I don't know. This is not an informational meeting. It's a hearing. Is that the VLCT language and or the Secretary of State's language? Why is it a hearing and not an informational meeting? I'm just curious.
Is that what it says on
It
here?
says
does
hearing.
say
Public
hearing, yeah.
informational hearing notice.
Yep. That is their their language.
Okay, why don't we just,
So,
I
I can take hearing off because
well, no, that might be fine, but we should just know.
check.
We should just know what the implications, if that adds, I would like to know what that,
If it means
whether
anything
it
other
means
than a
anything
meeting.
different than
Yeah.
a standard meeting for us.
Right.
It may well just be that that's the way it needs to be warned because it's related to town meeting, or I don't know, but we should probably find out.
I will ask the question just
Good.
to be sure.
Thank you.
I'd like to post this tomorrow if possible.
So the only question I have about posting this is just checking in with Meg Mott to make sure this makes sense to her.
She's seen it.
She's already
Okay.
seen
So
it,
she's
yeah.
been in the loop with
Great.
Jonathan and I
Okay, great.
on this whole thing, and so I think it'll be fine. But
So I have a question about some of the articles, or the two of the articles that I wanted to raise. But before we do that, did anybody else want to add anything to the layout of this?
I'm fine. This is the same layout we looked at before.
No, the only thing I would say is we're going to have to, and I'm sure you're on top of this, but we should keep thinking about it steadily, how to promote this as best as possible, because the more people we can get, ideally, the better. So,
yeah,
as we know, people's ability to join things like this and then making sure that, for example, they know there's a passcode.
right. Right.
We just have to,
So-
and also having whatever it means, and I know we've talked about this a little bit, but having some support available, whether if we could get a couple volunteers perhaps to answer phone calls here if people need to call in and ask questions
that's a
or
good-
something.
that's a good
Right.
idea.
That
along
was
those
that
lines.
was something that Jonathan and I talked about too, about questions. Because somebody had asked, they're not going to be able to attend, but they had questions and they wanted to send them to the select board. And I'm like, Jonathan spoke to the person and said, can you give those questions to somebody that's going to attend and then they can ask for you?
Well, I also saw in here that somebody said they could, if they wanted to ask questions, they could send them to John Johnson. It says
Right.
that somewhere.
It does say that. I think that's more about, please understand.
Oh, I thought it was if you have questions that you are unable to attend. Yeah, it says if you wish to make a public comment but do not have the ability to comment remotely during the meeting, please email your comments to Jonathan Johnson, Town Clerk, at
Okay.
clerk@putneyvc.org.
Right.
I thought that was more related
I think
to,
that's
I think
great.
format
that's
then.
more for details, logistics.
that's
Yeah.
sort of
But
what I
this
was
says if
thinking.
you wish to make
But
a public comment,
yeah,
but can't do it during the meeting.
you might want to just confirm that with him, and
Yeah.
also,
Right,
and
because-
also if we could maybe have a
John's
person or
gonna be
two
there.
available. Right.
He
So
wasn't
maybe
planning
he's-
on it,
so
but
maybe
he
he
will
serves
be
that
there as
purpose.
town clerk because there
Yeah.
are things in here that I know if somebody brings up a question that the select board and myself may
Might
not be qualified to answer. And as town clerk,
Right.
he will need to be in the meeting. He'll be on Zoom. And then, but if people want to email him questions, he can read them as town clerk,
Right. That seems
which
like a
is
good-
fine. I think that'll work.
I think
for
that's
the
a
format.
good system. That seems
Yes.
like a good system.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Fairman.
did someone else wish to speak?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, and
Go
then and then Swift afterwards.
Okay. I would suggest that as our town moderator, Dr. Meg Mott will be officiating this meeting, that questions that are submitted beforehand, she would be the appropriate person to put those questions on the floor, because this is the function of, she will be chairing the meeting, and that is part of her function. And in fact, under Robert's rules, that is the way it would be handled.
Yeah, no, that's a good suggestion, but I would think that and I know her and John have already been in contact, so
Yes.
if you want to review that with Meg and
Sure.
John, just to make
Yep.
sure, but that is definitely the appropriate way for them to come to the the quote unquote floor of the meeting, even though
Right.
it won't be
But
the
since
floor.
since it's easier to get Jonathan Johnson's email, if they can send them to him and he can
Right.
forward them to Meg.
Exactly, or Meg, or even
Right.
just, yeah.
So I'd like to add to that, there's 1,771 absentee ballots going out. They may have gone out today. And inside, there is a little piece of paper that states how to log in. And
Oh,
if
good.
there's any
Okay.
questions or anything
Great.
like that, they can,
Great.
reach out to the office. So, because we want everybody, if they can engage
As
and
much as
be there,
possible. Yeah, that'd
I
be
think
great.
it's important.
Swift wanted to say something.
Yes, Swift.
That's great. I was just checking in about how we're making this information public. So the mailing, that's not for this information meeting though, right? That's for the town meeting itself.
No, well, no, the town meeting is going to be, there is no town meeting itself per se. There's Australian ballot, so there will be written questions that you vote on. And that will be the
March
articles and
2nd.
warnings that come up at town meeting for
Right,
town meeting.
I wonder if there's something we can do in just making it more public around this, this information session, even just putting out something that we publish in the paper.
We
Like,
will.
people-
We
Yeah.
will, Swift. We're going to take care of that too. And we thought
Yay.
about a postcard.
And it's going to be posted on iPutney and on the
iPutney.
website.
Right.
But as Karen also just said, it's going out, information about it is going out because we agreed to send and ask Jonathan to send Australian ballots to all the registered voters in Putney, all the
Correct.
active registered voters
Right.
in Putney. And
Non-challenge.
and that will have information as to how to attend this hearing as well. So should
Mr.
make
Chairman,
sense. Yes, Mr. Fairman.
because I chance to be in the right place at the right time this afternoon, I can confirm that the ballots were mailed at the post office today.
Good. Okay. So
Also,
within a few days,
Right.
people should have them.
the town reports arrived to the office today.
Oh, okay.
Those will be labeled tomorrow. We hope to have them out tomorrow afternoon. If not tomorrow, it'll be Friday morning. So town reports are a week earlier than last year.
Good.
So
Good.
we've been very busy.
And but those don't contain anything about this meeting.
It does. Public
does?
information. Yes.
Front cover.
Right on the front cover.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
Yep. Hey, Lisa, how many labels did we have?
Just over 700.
Okay. So 1,771 absentee ballots and a little over 700 town reports. So town,
I'd like to, can
Go-
I add something?
go ahead.
About the town reports, a lot of people pick them up at town meetings. So since we couldn't do that, we were kind of trying to figure out how to get as many in as many hands as possible without, sending out 2,000 of them, which just isn't feasible. So I want to point out that it will be tomorrow posted on our website. So there's a digital copy available for anybody who did not get one.
Good.
And if you absolutely have to have a actual physical copy, we can figure out a way to make that happen. So give us a week to get them in the mail. And if you don't get one and you absolutely have to have one that's not digital, we'll get you one.
Can there, I don't know if this is possible. Can there be a stack at the post office on the tables or something? Do we have enough to do that?
We don't
No.
we don't really have
Okay.
that many extra to
Okay.
just willy-nilly give them out.
Okay.
But if somebody didn't get one in the mail and they know they want one and they
So
don't want to
we
look
could-
at the digital copy.
We could put
the
some
library.
here,
The library.
and then Emily
Good
could
idea.
put them in with book orders or something if
people,
somebody
yeah.
didn't get one.
So how did you figure out what the 700? How did you figure out who was getting a town report? I might have been reading something when you said that.
Most of them are property owners. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
If they had a Putney address,
Right.
they got one mailed.
Okay.
And then we also had the list of voters who had requested them in previous years.
Great.
So we cross-referenced those.
Good job.
So
Great.
that's how we got the list.
Okay.
Right. So there's like 1,100 properties, taxable properties. So
Okay.
700 town reports is a little low, but yeah, there's multiple checklists.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So I have one other question before
Yep.
we move on from this.
Yep.
And Ruby, I see that she's here, and it would be great because it might be something you could answer.
yes,
This is about the school articles because
that's Ruby.
what?
That is Ruby.
Because at the January 13th select board meeting, the town manager and David asked about whether the town articles are, 1, to allow Putney to leave the unified school district, or 2, to dissolve the school district. And the question was, do all towns have to agree to withdraw? And David said, is that what the article says, or does it say that all towns have to approve of one town withdrawing?
Yes.
Liz then said, if the merger is to be dissolved, all towns need to vote yes to dissolve the merger. One town cannot get out of the merger by itself. But the statute that I was referred to, which is 16 V.S.A. 724, says that a town can leave
Yes.
by itself. So I just wanted since we're going to have this come up at the informational meeting, I wanted somebody to be available there to be able to answer this question of why was it decided that it was only going to be dissolved rather than Putney choose to leave by itself, or what was the process around that? And I don't feel like you need to give that now. I just wanted to give you a heads up about that. I would like to have that answer during the informational meeting, because it seemed like at the January 13 meeting, the response we got was, no, it's only about dissolving. The statute is actually about one town being able to withdraw, but that's not the route we're going. Why is that?
So I'm Ruby McAdoo, and I'm, just so everyone is aware, I'm a Putney parent, a PCS parent, and I chair the Putney Central School Leadership Council. I also am recently appointed to the WSESD Communications Council. So thank you for asking that. I think one thing I'd like to flag for everyone, and hopefully I know this will come up again, because we talk about dissolving the merger. It's a question of language. So we're trying to move away from the idea of dissolving the merger, because it really is a question of withdrawal. And it's a really simple, I think it's a concise answer, so I'm going to just answer it now. The first question has to do with Putney. Does Putney want to withdraw? And the second one really is, all of the towns have to agree to let another town withdraw.
Right.
And in theory, Putney could, if everybody agrees, Putney could be approved to withdraw, to go forward to the Board of Education and get approved for withdrawal.
And the rest of the schools could stay together.
It could,
Right.
but there are lots of big question marks about what that process is, because the Board of Education would organize, would reorganize things. And it could be that it gets reorganized. If Putney were to withdraw, it could reorganize all the rest of the district into one, like another district without Putney, or it could say, break them all up and group differently. That's not part of this vote. This vote is the beginning point of a journey to creating, if there's a withdrawal, something gets created, and that's not what this vote is about. This is the first step. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
And I told Karen, and I'll tell everyone else that I know, that I will be at that info session.
Great.
I don't know if a board member will be. One of the things that the school board has discussed, and it may have come to the select board's attention and other select boards in the district. This vote is a town vote. And so when the school board brought it to the select board and said, will you consider putting this on your warning, when you voted, yeah, we'll do that, the school board thinks of that as you claim these articles as yours, as the town. And I sympathize with the town. You don't know, you haven't been following this. I've been going every meeting and I barely understand how.
Yeah.
So I as a citizen, as a voter, I'm going to show up to this, and I will give a big precursor of these are the hats I wear.
Great.
But when I speak, I'll be speaking as a voter.
Great.
And my understanding and my perspective. And I also, the Communications Council is working on some printed materials that will be resources that will help people. The Leadership Council may also do, I think we're going to talk about it tomorrow. Hopefully we'll do another like an info session of our own, or like a drop-in question and answer period, some like coffee with the Leadership Council, something. Because I do think it's confusing, and I think every town is confused in the same way.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you said. There, at the January 13 meeting, we were saying terms like dissolve the merger. What you're saying is now we want to be moving away from that language and really focusing on just what the articles say, which is withdraw, Putney withdraw, and allow others to withdraw. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And just one clarification, Ruby. Each of the towns, Brattleboro, Dummerston, and Guilford, they all have the parallel. Is there any town that is not asking its voters whether they can withdraw?
Not in every town in the district, and that's 4 towns,
Right.
are all have the same vote
Okay.
happening. And so this, for people who've been voters in this region for a while, the closest similarity was when we voted about Vernon withdrawing from the district. And we voted, and there was one stickler town who said no, and then we voted again. And at that point, enough had been resolved, and it was voted to let them go. And they had their reasons, and that was a different time.
Right.
But similar, if this vote goes forward and one town votes no on the second article, then the whole thing is dead in the water.
Oh, yeah. Got it.
Thank you, Ruby.
Can I share some information? So Ruby,
Yep.
so 1,771 absentee ballots went out for the town articles. 130 ballots for the school. There's a big discrepancy there
130 ballots
for the school. So the school has their vote as well.
Budget vote.
So the school ballots went in with some of the town ballots to be mailed out. So 1,771 town ballots, but only 130 people requested school ballots.
Oh, you have to request them? That's
Yes.
the issue?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
For absentee, I mean, you can show up and vote on voting day in the fire station. But for absentee, you needed to actually select that as a separate ballot.
Okay.
Correct. So I just wanted to throw that number out at you, Ruby.
That's helpful. I think that it's not unexpected. I think that it's confusing for people that there's 2 separate ballots, but they're 2 separate entities.
Right.
But and I think that John did a great job getting the word out on social media, and that's why there are 130 people that asked for absentee ballots. And we'll continue to get the word out to try to remind people that I think the school is going to have some kind of info session for the budget, and we'll try to promote that as well, so people know.
I'm just wondering what the deadline is. We past the deadline for requesting absentee ballots? I know there was a push to get them sent out with the other ballots for efficiency, but have we no more requesting absentee ballots, or is that?
Oh, you can still you can still request them, Sweat.
Until when?
I'm not sure about the absentee. Call Jonathan at the office or email him, and he can let you know when the drop dead deadline is.
Okay, I just figured to have that public so people, because I think some people will be like, oh, I didn't do it. I saw that poster. I heard Jonathan.
Right.
Now I can't get an absentee ballot.
Okay. Yeah, we can post something again as a reminder.
See anything about this? Yeah. I don't even know where this was. I agree with you, Swift. I wasn't even aware that this was a topic of discussion. Where would we have found out that we were going to be asking for them?
You mean for the school?
For the school.
For the
vote.
absentee
For the
ballot,
school? John just got them today, so it's like, yeah. I
John
can't.
put it on iPutney and on Facebook.
Yeah, you put it on Facebook and it worked.
Mr. Chairman.
I know a
Yes,
lot of
Mr.
people are
Fairman.
not on Facebook.
Because Vernon's withdrawal has been mentioned, and I realize put Putney in an interesting situation. I'm going to outline what happened in Vernon. Vernon, for decades, has had school choice across the state, across the Massachusetts line, where Vernon students could either go to BUHS or Pioneer Valley Regional High School in Bernston. And the town of Vernon also will pay that same amount of money toward tuition at Northfield Mount Hermon.
Oh my God.
Now, Putney would then be in the same situation of being able to tuition to not just to BUHS, but to other public high schools in the area, and to pay that same money for tuition at the Putney school. So that is why Vernon voted to do this, was to retain freedoms that they had. And if we pass this at town meeting, freedoms that Putney will gain. That is one very good reason for this to be before the voters.
I'm speaking without knowledge of this, Mr. Fairman, but Vernon has been a town with choice for many, many years. That goes back to Act 68. That's long previous to the merger.
Absolutely.
And I do not believe that we would be a choice town. There's very limited, and I don't know. I mean, Marlboro is one. There's a handful of them in the area. I don't think that's a correct statement, but I'm not sure.
Can I interject here?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that this ballot issue is to withdraw from the elementary school union, not the high school union. So I think that Howard Fairman's analysis is incorrect in this case. I think we're only talking about withdrawing from the elementary school union, not the high school.
And I think even if it was from the high school, it still would not entitle us to school choice that I'm aware of, but I don't know. Ruby's got something.
You're muted. You're muted.
Muted.
Unmuted.
I just was in a meeting today with Frank Rucker, who's the finance coordinator for the district. And it was a very long meeting. And I have to say that I don't know that we want to go into details right now, but Howard Fairman is actually correct in that. And the reason, the really brief thing that I can say is that if we were to withdraw and we were allowed to withdraw, BUHS is still in the WSESD. And even if there was a dissolution, even if the Board of Education dissolved the merged district and had to reform, the union, the BUHS number 6, which is the unionized kind of way that we accessed high school as part of a district, a little mini district, would not be reformed, or it would not automatically be reformed. So there is a big, big question mark around if we were to withdraw, what happens to our access to 8 through 12 education.
Oh my goodness.
And I must say that Putney's perspective on this is very different than many of the towns in our district, because we have an excellent school in our town that would give us choice to have our kids attend there. But it's not a public it would be taking money away from our public schools. And so it is a contentious point, and I am anticipating that it will be a contentious point at many of these info sessions. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I don't think there's any way that I'm not going to disparage someone who thinks one way or the other around it, but it is a question mark and it is an issue, and it is something that if we were to successfully withdraw, it is one of the big things that would need to be worked out to create a new district. And how do we have access to, we need to give our kids access to K through 12. That's the rules. We must. And so it would be working out what does that look like? That being said, I don't think of it as a carrot. To me, it's just one factor in many to consider around withdrawal. But I don't think that we can say for sure, yes, we are going to get school choice. before I had this meeting with with Frank Rucker, I thought the same as Josh. I was like, there's no chance. We're at like, Vernon's a special unicorn. They were grandfathered into that choice thing. That was a sweet deal.
That's why they pulled from the merger before it happened.
Right.
Right, because they didn't want to lose it.
And same with,
But I think that, as with, for example, the Marlboro example, they made an argument that they were a standalone district and shouldn't be attached to the one that the state wanted to give them, so that they were allowed to have school choice. It would be a similar question for Putney. If we withdraw from the merger, where does that leave us? And where would our kids go? And it may be that school choice is what that means.
but we should move on because
Right.
this is not our
Right.
discussion. But the
Yeah.
other thing, I sit on the board of the Putney School also, which I don't know whether that's the school you were referring to, but the amount of money that the state provides, even in school choice situations, does not even come close to covering the tuition of private institutions. So there would be that would not be an apples for apples kind of thing. And it's not at Northfield. Well, Northfield has a special agreement, but anyway, yeah, it's complicated. Anyway, okay, well, now that we've clarified all that stuff, made it clear as mud. So any other questions about the public informational meeting? All right. So next we're going to move on to the certificate for no appeal or suit pending for listers. So this is to verify that it's Form PVR 4155, in which the listers have stated that they hereby certify that on this date there are not any appeals pending from action of the listers nor suits pending to recover taxes paid under protest relating to the April 1st, 2020 grand list of Putney, Vermont. So this is referring to last year's grand list. It's
Correct.
Not the upcoming grand list.
Right.
And so we have to accept this certificate or adopt or approve this certificate.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Sign it.
Yep, and
All
sign
three?
it, yes.
So you sign yours and we'll pass it along?
I have two signatures on here, but I'm not
Yes.
sure they're the originals.
Are you
So
No,
they're
here's-
not.
this
You've
is-
got the
yep.
original?
So if you
Okay.
pass that along.
You want to do the first one, Josh?
So is there a motion?
Oh,
Is
yeah?
there a motion to approve the certificate presented from the listers of no appeal or suit pending?
So moved.
Seconded.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve the no appeal or suit pending certificate. Is there any discussion? Sounds like there's no discussion, so all in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm awesome for this.
Good.
Yeah.
And thank you to Jordy and Doug for that,
Yeah.
because no suits pending is always good news.
That is
Um,
correct.
All right, so next,
Thank you.
State of Vermont 2020 Equalization Study results.
So this is informational for the board. Again, this is sent to the lister's office. I just want to note that it is down from last year. So last year was 98.03%. So when they get down to about 88%, then
It triggers.
it
Yeah.
triggers a
Below,
re-
below,
yeah,
yeah, it's
a
below 90,
reappraisal. And so this
I
is
have no idea what this is. Do we have
Oh.
to make a
So-
vote or anything? Because
Mara, how
No.
much time do you have?
No, we
No.
don't have to take a vote or anything. I'm fine with just
No.
moving right
I
along.
read this 4 times.
It's-
I read it. I read it.
It's like,
I read
So
it, but
very basically, I'll give you the 1 minute version. What this is it's a reconciliation of how the prices of homes in our town compare to prices of homes in other towns. And essentially, it's an evaluation of the accuracy of our lister's office. So if our lister's office, if that number drops below 90%, it's essentially a strong indicator that the lister's office is not, or that the values are not accurate or adequately adjusted to compare significantly to other states' towns. So that's the base thing. And the CLA, as it drops, you watch it because you want to make sure. And the listers basically work to try and keep it within a range. 2014, when we had our last townwide reappraisal, it was triggered because we had dropped down below the CLA that was recommended. We can opt to do a townwide reappraisal, the select board and the listers. I can't remember exactly what the process for that is, but we can opt to do it. But at a certain point, if the CLA drops below 88%, I think it's a little higher than that.
85%.
Oh, it's 85?
Yeah.
Oh, it used to be higher.
Or if it's a 115 or more, it's too high.
Then the state requires us to do it.
So is it true, Josh, then as that CLA drops, that the COD, the coefficient of dispersion, will then go up to offset the drop? That's how the formula works. And that's how you balance out, that's how you equalize the money coming in to make it fair. I read it 4 times. It seems like that's what it is. Maybe I should ask Jordy.
I think that's basically right.
Because there's got to be a mechanism to offset that lower value.
Well, except
because if your grand list is lower, then the rate that you get charged must be higher, so you come up with a fair amount of money.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Yes, roughly. I think, but the coefficient of dispersion is basically the point spread. I mean, it's the amount, so yeah, I don't know. Ask Jordy. Then report back to us.
Melissa's here. Josh?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Eileen.
This is actually Eileen. Oh, okay.
How nice. She can answer this question.
Yeah, Eileen knows. Hi, Eileen.
Yeah, I can probably make it as clear as mud as well.
Yeah,
good. Wonderful. Thank you.
But the common level of assessment is actually the states. It's a 3-year study of sales in our town against our assessed value. So it doesn't have anything to do with other towns. And it does trigger a reassessment if it goes below, now I can't remember the exact percentage.
85.
85, yeah. So we'll trigger that reassessment order. But it's also used for several things. It's used for the school education funds.
Yes.
A percentage that they will, the rate. And it's also used for to equalize the rates that utilities will give us. And I just also wanted to mention that due to, there's actually a raging debate right now in the lister world about the what we've been terming the COVID spike of sales prices.
Yes.
They've gone through the roof.
Yes.
And so there's been a lot of talk about how we're going to handle that because it's statewide.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would think a super important question about that is how long it's going to remain, because it's going to throw a whole bunch of these CLAs way off for at least a period of time, and then are they all going to drop back in 3 years? I wonder. Who knows?
Right, and the good news is that it is a 3-year study, so they will fluctuate, up and down. And Putney is not in danger of, triggering that reassessment order yet. It's more of an issue with the towns that are hovering up and down, very close to that percentage.
Right.
Can I ask you a question while you're right here, Eileen? About this, the coefficient of dispersion is a measure of how fairly distributed the property tax is within your town. It is calculated as the average of the absolute difference of each sales ratio list price divided by sales price in the study from the median ratio. And now I'm already lost.
That's not clear to you, David?
So can you put that in terms that I can understand? What's that mean?
No.
Smart.
I respect that.
Yeah.
Do you know somebody who can? Because it seems like that's very important. That's very important to me.
No, so
As the
so
disparity
David,
grows, that's very important.
I don't want to do it in public session because I will confuse everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
But I'm certainly happy to give you an explanation on that one offline.
Okay, I'd love that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, just goes to show when you have a professional on the phone hiding, you weren't even on camera.
I
I
know.
thought I could get away with my explanation, but oh well. All right, so we don't need to take an action on this, I don't
No.
believe, right?
That's
No.
just informational.
So Putney Land Forestry Assessment Reports from Sam Schneski and Dan Healey.
Correct.
So we have this, I have not had time to review these, so
Okay.
I'm
Hold on.
not.
Alyssa, can you mute other people? Alyssa, is she there?
I'm
Or
looking.
Nancy, I
There
think
you
that's
go.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
thank
you
you.
Okay.
So in your packet are two reports from foresters. This is part of the due diligence on Putney Mountain.
Right.
The Dan Healey report also has the 50 acres on Route 5. So I
Which
found
is my neighbor, by the way.
nice,
Just so you know.
nice.
Full disclosure.
Yep.
So I reviewed both reports. David actually did a walk through all three properties with Dan Healey. And they're similar. They both indicate that recreational use is good for the Putney Mountain. And then there's signs of wildlife, a lot of deer up there.
Well, I wouldn't say a lot. There's 6 deer up there.
That's not what Dan said
I
in
know,
his.
but there's really not that
He
many
doesn't
deer.
want to publicize it, so.
Yeah, that's
Oh, gotcha.
That's not it, really. No.
So
It all depends on your definition of a lot. I certainly didn't see a sign of a lot of deer. There were 2 spots there was deer sign.
Yeah.
And I saw 6 beds in that area. We walked the whole piece. So I didn't see, that's not what I'd call a lot of deer, but there are definitely deer.
there's signs of wildlife up there, which is important because the state right now is talking about wildlife connectivity corridors.
Right.
And these particular parcels may fall into that criteria. Now, as far as
Can I ask
Tim-
what that means, Karen? Can you explain that just a little bit?
so wildlife connectivity corridors, and I think Ann Carey is on this Zoom with us and she can explain it as well. So the Planning Commission is looking at this right now. What it does, it's like an overlay, like a zoning overlay that protects certain areas for wildlife to be able to move.
Because they can get from one area
Yes.
to another
Yes.
through these corridors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that limits, land development, certain restrictions, but the Planning Commission is just starting to get into it deeper.
Got it.
And I'm not sure where they're going to go with that.
Got it.
So it may be like an amendment to the zoning regulations.
Okay.
And it'll be a long process, but I've been sitting in some of the Planning Commission meetings while they discuss certain things. So,
And it's amazing. I mean, when you look at mapping, sort of the measure of that, or the measure of the decrease in it is based on forest fragmentation. And when
Right.
you look at forest fragmentation in the more densely, up in Chittenden County, for example, it's just stunning. If you watch a time lapse of it, it just blows your
It's
mind.
Yeah.
unbelievable.
It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you just,
So many.
and it's happening here too.
it is.
It's a little more concentrated and smaller, but especially given what we were just talking about of the influx of population,
Yeah,
these are
compact
things we need
settlement.
to be really
We
paying
need to
attention to.
protect and preserve what we have, especially open land.
Yeah. The difference even from when I was a teenager. I mean,
Yeah.
one of our favorite things to do on Friday night was to go ride around and count deer. There's nothing to count 100 on a Friday night.
Yeah.
In various fields.
Yeah.
There's no deer around like that anymore, and that's because there's no food.
Right.
There's no
Wait a
food, and the
minute.
forests are all climaxed.
Wait a minute, because I heard the opposite from our forester. We're having major problems in the state with deer.
Well, what we're having is
overgrazing the smaller plants.
Mhm.
they are eating more because there's less food available because it's all climaxed, because it's all grown trees.
Right.
And there's nothing,
Oh,
there's
I
no
see.
alfalfa fields
There's
there
no
for them to
fields
eat. Right.
for them.
So
Got
the
it.
number of deer for what's available
Got
is a
it.
problem.
Got
But the
it.
number of deer that are here are much
Oh,
less.
so it's not that we have a problem with too many deer.
And
it's
it
that we have
depends on the
too many
area
deer
of the state that
or
you're
the
in,
food
too.
that's available. Okay.
But that's also was a problem created by deforestation back in sheep era, and then you had a whole bunch of growth of deer food everywhere, and
Right.
now we're going the opposite
Right.
direction. So.
So
We
it all
also-
depends on what part of the
Right.
the curve you're
Where-
on, where
exactly.
you started and ended.
So I have two questions about this. Are you going to get into details or any more?
No, I just wanted to say that, there's invasive species
Yes.
up there,
Yeah.
which is a problem because of course that spreads.
Yeah.
Even in the air, it's airborne. So
Some of them, yeah.
it is an issue and needs to be managed. The timber value, David can speak more of that,
More
but,
Well, as a town, there's not much money in timber there because it would cost so much to get it off. But
Right,
There's
right.
a bunch of timber there that has value. If it was a private owner that owned it, I could cut $50,000 worth of hemlock off there pretty quickly. But if you have to hire someone to come and do it, you're not going to get any money out of it because it's going to cost that to get it out. So that's not. Dan was reflecting that.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
this-
yeah, and there's
But
more due diligence
he also-
that's needed.
He also said too that, and I don't know if he said it in this, but I remember when we were walking that, managing that piece is really important.
Yeah.
Because not just for the timber value, but for the piece itself.
Right.
Making it not all climax would be really a good thing to do. And he's the forester, I'm not. We would have to talk to him about the details of that. And we weren't really doing that day. What we were doing was walking it to try to get a better sense of what it really actually was.
Right.
And each piece is really unique. The parcel in Brookline is mostly big hemlock, and it's mostly really
Ledge,
steep with a bunch of benches that are workable. It has logging roads all over it where people have logged it before. You can see the stumps. But the top piece is mostly ledge and swamp. And really, if you were going to do anything with it, his suggestion was you clear it and then manage the stems that come up and try to start over.
Yeah.
Because it's mostly pasture field pine that it's multi-topped and it's dying. It's not good. And the parcel, if we're just going to stick to those two, I won't speak about the 1.5 yet. But-
Yeah, no.
Okay,
Yeah,
right.
we're just talking about Putney Mountain.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
so
And I don't,
a forest plan too was mentioned, or conservation easement. So I want to talk to Sam some more regarding conservation easements and current use. So for the Brookline side, it was, there was a recommendation, why isn't it in current use? So
Mhm.
there's still questions that need to be answered
Yep, absolutely.
about all three of the parcels. And I still have not connected with the auditor regarding Ann Carey's questions from a couple weeks ago. And the auditor did state that, if we own land, we should hold on to it. It's an asset. So I need him to answer several questions, and we still have not connected yet.
yeah. Question for the auditor would be, why do we need to hold on to it? But the other thing I wanted to point out, Sam Schneski did walk, the hemlock on the Brookline side is heavy near wintering area. Sam Schneski's evaluation was that there was a lack of quality regeneration throughout the whole property, which has much to do with deer browsing every sapling. And I think Lionel Chute is not here, but he did a really good evaluation of Sam's report. And I think he could also do a very, good second look at Dan's report if it's written. And I'd like to have him do that for you all. And the last thing I'd sort of like to say is refer to Sam Schneski's last point, which is talks about how land could grow better quality trees and promote a diversity of age classes through active management and ideally more hunter pressure. Good luck on the latter. But through active management for future timber harvesting. And I'd just like to point out that the Conservation Commission does not want more timber harvesting. There have been 3 town meeting votes. We want the land managed for wildlife corridors, as Karen was saying, and also just for recreation. That has been a key recreational area for Putney residents. It is the most used recreational area in Putney, and it's also a tourist draw. This place is access to a 43-mile ridgeline trail system, Putney Mountain and the Pinnacle Association. And if you take the access area for Putney, getting on that trail system, then you are going to take away a lot of activity in the village of Putney from tourists when things rev up again. And indeed, I think Putney Mountain was pretty overwhelmed when the COVID crisis hit, because it was such a popular area. It was on the internet. People knew it was there. And Pat, if she wants to speak to it, they had to make the trails one way. There were so many people using it because people want to be outside and, especially when you're locked up in your house otherwise. And I just think that Sam's last statement here should be looked at. If left alone, Putney Mountain will continue to provide great ecosystem benefits, have carbon storing value, and promote recreational opportunities for the public. So I think we're at a point where we decide, are we going to manage this for logging, in which I don't think the Putney Mountain Association would manage the area for logging. If you do manage for logging, if the town is going to go in and manage this for logging, then I just don't think Putney Mountain would take on that task. That's not what they're there for. They have over 200 Putney residents as members of the organization. And it's really been carrying out the will of this community, which has been stated in 3 town meetings. And I'm sure it could be stated that way again. So I'm wondering if we're not coming to a point where we can certainly discuss the value of the property, probably based on what David's walked through and his observations, Sam's report, and as I understand it, Dan Healey's report, and consider that due diligence. And I really would like to have Lionel Shute weigh in before any further steps are taken. But I think we're getting to the issue of why do a timber assessment if logging is not really on the table for this property. So that's my opinion.
We didn't say that.
We didn't do a timber assessment.
Yeah.
We didn't count anything. We just did a general look at it. And in response to couple of things you said, the browsing that's happening is on beech nuts and on regrowth of beech, and that stuff is regrowing, but only in the places where it had been logged. So if you're managing it for wildlife, then cutting would be good. Not that I think that we should cut it. The understory is not growing because of browsing, but not just because of browsing, but because it's such a complete canopy of hemlock. There's no light getting through. And Dan spoke to that too. So that part's a little bit, my understanding of that from Dan is a little different than what you just said. But coming back to value of the property, there's a couple lines in here from Dan that stuck out. It said, moving beyond timber to think of other values, parcels 1 and 2, that's Putney Mountain, the top one, and Putney and the Brookline one, have high recreational value and natural value to the town and the stakeholder groups. Development values are likely relatively high on these parcels. And then in the down, it's at bottom at the next paragraph, it says, as Putney continues to grow, it will be important to balance both conservation with development. Parcels 1 and 2 in this rapid assessment hold the highest and most obvious value as conservation lands, and if the town opts to sell these lands, pricing should be commensurate with the value these lands also hold for potential development. So how do we assess the value of these properties unless we consider all of that? And I don't really know how to do that. But that all has to be thought about. And I think that points towards what Karen is saying. We're not done
Right.
doing due diligence on this yet.
No.
So.
And did Lionel to get a copy of Dan's report? I think was that able to be done in the short time period we have? And I'd also like to hear opinions from other folks.
So I did, yes, and I did send Lionel Dan Healey's report. And he
Thank
did,
you.
and he did make a comment. He emailed me back, so.
Josh, Alan had his hand up.
Pat, I think Pat was first and then Alan.
You're muted, Pat. You're muted.
Pat, you have to unmute. Unmute, Pat.
I'll
There
hold
you
it. Okay. I'd like to speak to this also, especially about the potential for development. The COVID spike was mentioned here, and I'm speaking as president of Putney Mountain and also as chair of the acquisition committee. We certainly know that across Vermont, people with means are buying huge amounts of property sight unseen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only going to continue.
Yeah.
I did speak with Karen and we had a good conversation this morning. But what I really wanted to do is to urge the select board when considering this and doing the rest of your due diligence, to consider the importance of permanently conserving the land from
Right.
both harvesting and especially from development, because that pressure is just going to increase. Nobody knows what a select board 50 years or 100 years from now, or even 10 years from now is going to be facing.
Right.
And once that land is lost, it's lost forever. It doesn't come back. So I guess that's my plea. So Putney Mountain was approached over a year ago before the last town meeting about would we be willing to take a transfer of that land as a way of permanently conserving it. And we said yes, and that is one way to conserve it, but it's not the only way.
Okay.
You can also put a conservation easement on it with Vermont Land Trust. That would cost money, but it would allow the town to retain the property and yet protect from the potential for development and selling. So that is just my plea is, I think it's a question of how as much as what,
Right.
or even more than what, is to think about what is this land going to mean permanently for the next 100, 200, for the next, as long as we're around. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
Pat.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Alan.
Well, I wanted to say two things. One is that I think my understanding of the people I know in town, they'd be very unhappy to see a lot of houses built up on the bridge. I think that we need to conserve it in one way or another. I think my understanding of the kind of arrangement people have with the Vermont Land Trust is the Vermont Land Trust buys the development rights, which would actually give money to the town or to the Putney Mountain Association if they owned it, and would retain. It would allow us to get some of the development value out of it without having it actually developed. So I think that should be explored.
Yep.
I also think that I'm not sure that I would be totally against any logging up there. I think that I might be convinced by some foresters that the forest could be improved by removing some trees. So I would encourage the town to think about conserving and improving the forest, but not developing.
Right.
And to think about what the best ways to be able to afford that would be, which would can involve at least contacting the Vermont Land Trust to see what they think about it. Thank you.
Pat,
Thank you.
go ahead.
I just want to say that that's not how the Vermont Land Trust works. We and whoever is going to put the conservation easement on a piece of property actually pays the Vermont Land Trust to do that. They don't pay, the money goes from you to them, not from the Vermont Land Trust to us. For example, in our last project, we just conserved almost 60 acres of land, and we paid them $20,000 in order to put the conservation easement on it. So that's a little bit different.
So I have a question then, because when we were talking, Lionel was talking about the Forest for Learning, there was a part of that discussion, I thought, maybe I'm wrong, Josh, remind me, but I thought there was talk about that wanting to do it without any stipulations on anything in the future, because then he could possibly go to the Vermont Land Trust and sell the development rights, which would fund it.
I don't think he was specifically talking about Vermont Land Trust. He was talking about conservation agencies and the possibility of that. But it often, I think Pat is right in essentially saying, it's often sort of a balancing act of the costs involved versus, one of the problems with not problems, but one of the challenges for an organization like Vermont Land Trust is that if they assume conservatorship of it, then that also, by doing that, they are tasked with stewardship.
Okay.
And that there are costs involved in that. And so, it's sort of a balancing act. Sometimes there are sometimes there is money available for conservation if an area is under intense development pressure, because it has value beyond that. I am aware that there are people who would want to build houses up there, but if you think about a parcel, for example, on Black Mountain Road, as opposed to the top of Putney Mountain, it's a different type of development pressure of lots of housing quickly. Yes. That shifts the equation for that kind of thing. So there's just a lot of different components that come into it.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of information we don't have, so that we could properly value this and then make a good choice.
Yeah.
Right. There's still
This
work.
is Gino raising his hand. Can you hear?
Had her hand up.
Oh, this Gino Palmieri raising his hand. I'm on a phone. I don't usually.
Yeah, go ahead, Gino.
Thank you. Yeah, I do think some more information is needed, and I think Lionel might be able to provide quite a bit, because I believe he has a forestry background. Lionel Shute.
Well,
and his opinion would be free, since he's doing it as a conservation commissioner. Now, I do think that since Pat Shields is here still, I was wondering, the Putney Mountain Association could receive this land and what I want to know is, would it be easier and more and less costly for the land to be managed, this mountain land only, to be managed for wildlife and conservation, as we think is the highest, best value, by the Mountain Association, more so than having the town hire people to do it? I'm wondering, because I think it can be quite expensive, and I don't know who we'd end up having do it. And I'm not talking about logging at all. This is just the management of the stands.
Well, so the Putney Mountain.
I'm wondering.
Putney Mountain Association has been stewarding the land for a number of years, or at least parts of the land for a number of years.
The trails.
At no cost to the town.
But do they manage it?
Well, they don't manage the whole parcel, but they've been doing stewardship of the portion of it that they use. It doesn't, as it sits right now, it doesn't cost us anything to manage it. What it does cost us is paying taxes to the town of Brookline.
Yep.
So that is that's a downside. It's not a huge amount of tax, but I think, folks, that we're getting the cart
These are
way ahead of the
details.
horse here.
Details.
I mean,
We need
you know,
more.
these are two assessments. I think we all have the interest of doing the best thing for the town in the long run with this land, and we've still got quite a bit of business to do. So I think, much as I appreciate everybody's input, and this conversation is very important, you know, we're still working our way through it. So I can say from my part, I have made no judgment as to what the best thing to do with this land yet is. I think conserving it is probably the best thing to do with it, without any question from my mind. But I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, because we don't have all the information. So I think we're still gathering information. Alyssa.
I think Nancy Fournier had something she wanted to say. She's been trying to talk for a while now.
Sorry, go ahead, Nancy.
You're on mute, Nancy.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to say that I really think that this Putney Mountain parcel shouldn't really be considered in terms of assets. I consider it a resource, especially for habitat for the birds. And the birds have really struggled around here because of people's homes and removing trees. And the trees are very important for, you know, their life cycle. I know people feed the birds, but they have to have trees. And the other thing about, I think that anytime a tree lot is needs to be managed is very little, if ever, because nature takes care of itself. And when a tree falls, it becomes habitat for the creatures on the ground. And it decays, it becomes part of the ecosystem underneath. And this dense canopy up above is exactly what this microorganism on the ground that supports the whole ecosystem of the forest. That dense canopy is very important to remain intact and not remove trees. And I think, you know, that, you know, people here just so appreciate it as it is. And I just don't think once it's gone, it's gone. And I think we should preserve it with the Putney Mountain Association doing the wonderful job that it has been doing.
Thank you. All right. I'm just going to move on, folks, unless there's anything else anybody has to say. You know, we've still got work to do. It's late. And again, I appreciate the input. We're still information gathering. I don't think anybody wants to do the wrong thing with this land. So we're going to keep working on trying to figure out exactly what the right thing is. So, all right. So next on our agenda is town manager's report. I'm actually going to
Finally,
for a moment.
Finally. So the first item on my report is property tax installment is due February 19th, 2021. So that would be next Friday. And I wanted to mention too that we still need to collect $1,122,074.58.
From the first two installments?
That's for all three.
For all three.
Yep. And we're still delinquent $41,068.96, which is not too bad.
How much of that is from this year?
None of that. That's all.
That's all
Yep.
from
Yep.
before. Okay.
So the
That's
1
right,
million.
it's not delinquent till after
Wait.
the third.
Right.
Wait. When you say this year, you don't mean calendar year, you mean budget year? What do you mean?
Tax year.
Tax year, meaning the
Yes. So
three payments that we
2020.
make?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
So 41,000 is left over from before this tax year.
Correct.
And we have $1 million left to collect. $1 million, what was it?
$1,122,074.
So how much of that is late first and second payments? Do you know?
About 90,000.
It's actually a fair spot. For
Right.
payments. Yeah.
So I think
Is it that high?
Is that Alyssa?
80 or 90?
Yeah, it's 11, yeah, like 91,000, 92,000
Wow.
for the first and second payment. So,
And this is a good time for the reminder that
yeah.
they want to do that. They want to get caught up.
Yeah, because if we don't see a payment on the 19th by 4 p.m., there's an 8% penalty on what is due. So we encourage everybody to make payments. Even if it's not the full payment, you're going to want to try to get as much paid before we assess penalty.
Can you say offhand how much that 90,000 differs from most years and first and second payments being late? Is that much more? Do you know?
No, actually, I
No.
think it's lower
It's
from
lower?
last year. Yep.
Okay.
But
Right.
we'll see, if we have 92 outstanding, chances are we might have 90,000 for the third payment.
Got it.
So,
That'll shift that equation up
right.
Yeah.
quite a bit.
And then the only other thing I wanted to mention was utility aged receivables report. We're out $19,759.69, but that'll go down a little more too, because usually what happens, people pay their taxes, pay their utility bills too.
Got it.
So I'm comfortable with those numbers right now. And we'll be busy next week. And we are closed on Monday for the holiday. So, but you can still drop off your payments in the lockbox or go online and pay. My second item is the highway truck is in service with the highway department. So it's registered, insured, it's running. They've got everything in it that they asked for. The radio's in. It just needs the decal on the doors now. So it's operational. Sandglass, their USDA grant submission has been extended again till
I
March
don't think
31st.
they can hear. People are holding it.
What?
You can't hear us, Alyssa?
Can you hear us, Alyssa? You can.
Can you, Swift?
I can hear. I just have a toddler in the background.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were saying you couldn't hear. I'm sorry.
No, I just
Okay.
have to do that.
You're just being stylish. Yeah.
Trying to make sure you know I'm really interested.
Sorry to interrupt you, Karen.
Yeah, now my train of thought is just like
The
gone.
USDA grant for Sandglass.
Yeah, so March 31st.
What does
is-
that mean? What does this mean?
So Sandglass has applied for a USDA grant for computers. And the town actually has to submit it on their behalf.
Why is that?
It's just the way they do certain grants. And
okay.
Pass through.
yeah, it's like a pass through.
Okay.
And so,
But we
It doesn't-
literally just do
no.
that. No, we do more. You do more.
Oh, yeah.
You have to do more.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
of course.
Is it because they don't give grants to individual businesses or people? And they give
They
it to us
do,
and then
but
we
they have to
disperse
be,
it?
essentially, they have to be supported by.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
There
So,
has to be.
So is that a lot of work for you?
it's some. I've looked at it, and most of it's done. All I'm waiting for is a date so I can submit it.
This is a small grant, so
Yeah.
it's not.
It's like $10,000.
So it's
Yeah.
not a huge amount.
Right.
Okay.
But
Fine.
we'll prepare it and get it ready. And so Australian ballots, they were mailed out today, as Mr. Fairman confirmed.
Good.
So again, 1,771 ballots for town articles, 130 school ballots were requested. So spread the word out there. Town reports will be mailed hopefully by tomorrow. If not tomorrow, they'll be out on Friday morning. So that's good news too. I do want to make one announcement. So there was a water leak earlier in the week and in the village. So I took a walk down there. Of course, Joe notified me. And Brian had been driving by and noticed water coming onto the street.
Where are we talking?
Christian Square.
Oh, yeah.
So paved road, he sees water, he calls Joe. Joe goes down, takes a look. They thought it was the curb stop because it had been bent. So Brian dug it up a little bit. They were able to shut it off, turn it on, shut it off, turn it on. Well, the owner of the house, what they had done, and this is very important, if you are going to winterize your house and leave, and if you think shutting off the water from the inside, you have to call the water department or the town manager's office and ask for the curb stop to be shut off. So all that pressure backed up in the pipe that goes into the house, it just blew and there was water, like the basement was flooded. So, and she had shut everything down, the heat, everything, but she had quite a mess in there. And, it's unfortunate, but anytime you winterize your house, please call the town.
Is that something that they get a bill there can be a really obvious notice that it says, if you're going away, if you're winterized, like, do they get a bill for their water or whatever?
Well, no, we don't get people that call and say.
No, I just mean, is there any way to communicate with people that have town water?
Oh yeah, we can put a notice in their bills.
Yeah, like
yes.
at the beginning of winter. I don't know if that is done, but I would, because this is
Right.
only going to reach like 4 people.
I know.
So I
know.
just wonder if that's a way to do it.
It is a way, and I don't think it happens very often, but I don't think homeowners think about,
They don't.
when they winterize, it's, how many times has it happened? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
That's
very
that's a
important.
first for me, I think.
Yeah.
But it makes perfect sense. I mean,
Yes.
and it's also, I would have to imagine because it probably involves your meter and everything. So there's probably some significant costs involved.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's,
So.
Karen, don't you think Vera's right? It absolutely should be just printed at the bottom of the bill. People who have in-town water,
Right.
that they get that.
Or at the
Because
top of
there's
the
plenty
bill.
of people. I never heard of it. I mean, it's not a problem for me. I have my own well, but I'm sure there's. I would say most of the people that have town water don't know what you just said.
I know. It's
So
like,
who sets up
that's
who
why
does the bill?
we do.
So is that something you could
You seen that,
easily
Josh?
add at the top of the
Yeah,
bill?
probably in the fall when we do
exactly, like
quarterly.
at the beginning
Yep.
of the season.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
So.
off camera.
Yeah.
We weren't laughing at you, Swift. We were
No.
laughing with you.
So, I think that's all I have.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
All right. So that would bring us to other business. Is there any other business? Given that we don't have, looks like Swift has lots of other business going on.
Yeah, she got a construction business going.
Or the fire business.
I'm so sorry I was late. I wasn't able to get in for things not on the agenda. So what I wanted to speak to is I'm on the Equity Inclusion Committee, for those of you that do not know, and just voicing some concerns that we've been getting from the public via email, and also just reported in conversation and phone calls, just with concerns about the lack of follow-up after the damage that was done to the mural, as well as the vandalism in front of the post office. So there's definitely people that are just concerned about the lack of follow-up, but there's also a piece where there's people of color and maybe not people of color, but there are people that are not feeling safe with the lack of follow-up. This piece of like, well, there's no follow-up, what does that mean? And feeling like that it might have just that it's creating this piece of not necessarily feeling safe. I think that's all I'm going to say about that. And there was an email sent from someone to you. I think Vera responded. I think their name is Jerry Haim, I think. Hyam, thank you. Just voicing some of those concerns, and you responded, Vera, and they did speak to us. We are inviting the sheriff to our next meeting on March 8th, which is at 6:30, and 6:30 to 8. And you can find that all on our part of the website. We do want to make sure we invite the public. Please do come if you want to. We're hoping to maybe get more information from the sheriff. Sorry about the toddler. Or any information that there is. And we wanted to also invite the select board, hope that a select board member would come to that meeting as well. Just wanted to voice that here publicly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard. I mean, there has been some follow-up on asking the sheriff's department what sort of has been involved in their, to the best of my knowledge, they have not had any ability to track or to really track down anybody related to these issues. I think that maintenance of the road painting was challenging because it happened late enough. The painting happened late enough in the season so that it's hard to upkeep. But also, I went back and reviewed the resolution related to the painting, and the commitment on the part of that was the EIC was committed to maintaining it, but only through December of 2020. So, and we talked a little bit about this previously, but we're going to have to think about what the implications of that are coming through spring, and whether we're going to renew the resolution and try and bring it back up to standard, and if so, how to manage that.
Excuse me, wouldn't follow up the work that's been done, the select board and so on and so forth on the inclusion and whatever workshops that you all took? I think that would be considered follow up.
Well, yeah, but that's a different category. I mean, the question is, I think the question is sort of trying to keep somebody on task for what happened in the investigation, particularly, and whether there was an investigation that was conducted and or completed related to either the destruction to the painting and or the graffiti that occurred on Route 5. To the best of my understanding, the sheriff's department has not been able to identify. Well, they haven't come up with anybody. So
Well, there's my understanding. There's two pieces. They haven't come up with any, but there also hasn't been any updates. There hasn't been any information released publicly, which would be great to do because that's part of the concerns of the public right now. And one of my concerns is like, okay, well, let us know that.
So you're saying that sheriff department has not let the public know that there's no update? Is that what you're saying?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess there's just wanting more public information around what's going on with this investigation, and where we're at, and even just something saying no suspects and all of that, or that's fine. But I believe there was video footage. There's all these like little lines that just haven't wrapped up. It's like, oh, there was nothing conclusive from the videos or something like. I'm making assumptions here, but
So
yeah,
no
there was no
report.
footage that would have covered that on Route 5. I mean, it ain't gonna happen. Sorry, we need to move forward. No, really. If what we need to do is to move forward around these issues and educate ourselves. Excuse me.
All right. Well, thank you.
So I hear the need to move forward. Well, go grab some hair and I'll put them on it.
So Swift, thank you. So if you can let us know after you're having the sheriff's department at the Equity Inclusion Committee, if anything comes of that, let us know. I think she's a little distracted.
Sorry, I just want to respond to the piece of that we should just let this go. And yes, I hear that. I don't know. I'm not saying I want to make sure that someone's arrested or that that's what the people that have concerns are saying that they want to make sure happens. But the piece that there hasn't been follow-up and there's just been sort of this silence is making people feel unsafe, whether that's a statement. Even the Equity Inclusion Committee has been trying to make a statement and just in general trying to put more out there. I'll definitely take some of the responsibility of we haven't made a statement either, but there's nothing from the select board. There's nothing out there that's saying like, hey, we care about the fact that this happened and we're doing something, even if there's no conclusive and there's nothing conclusive and that's disappointing and we're doing our best. But the silence from Putney is what's causing the concern in the community. That's my understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you, Swift.
All right.
Thank you.
So I think that concludes, unless there's anybody else that has other business. I think we will move on, and I believe we are going to have a brief executive session.
Brief? What is that?
But we're going to have an executive
Get a
session.
big pile of papers in front of her.
So do
Okay.
you need a motion?
Yes, please.
I move that we enter executive session under Title 1 V.S.A. 313.3.
Which is all you need to say.
Oh.
That's fine.
Do we need a
And-
second? Wait a minute.
And I second that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. So it's been moved and seconded to enter executive session. If there is no further discussion about that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Next
I-
meeting?
Our next, thank you. Our next meeting will be February 24th at 5:30. So that's 2 weeks from tonight. And whether we'll be here or just online, I'm not sure.
I think we're going to be online.
Okay. And
Then the
I do not
27th.
believe there will be any action taken as a result of our executive session
No.
tonight. So no need for you to stay around, Austin. But we will report if there is any, and we'll report a completion time. Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you, Alyssa.